Welcome to the second clinic focused on the Navajo CARES Relief Grant. Today, we're going to be going over step 2, which is filling in the actual online application for either the artisan grant or the business grant. Yesterday, we looked at filling out Form 100 and also registering for the Navajo source list, which are two prerequisites to filling out the online application. Today's session is going to be run by my colleague, Jessica Stago. If you could go to the next slide, Jess. Jess runs our business incubator at Change Labs. She's also one of the co-founders and she's a senior coach. Her email address is there and it'll show up at the end again if you'd like to follow up with her with any questions that you have about this clinic. And now I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of Change Labs, and I apologize I didn't introduce myself. My name is Heather Fleming, and I'm the executive director at Change Labs in Tuba City. And we're a nonprofit, a Navajo nonprofit that provides creative workspace tools, resources, and knowledge to Native American vendors, artists, small business owners. And I just wanted to give you a quick overview of our program before handing things over to Jess. So for those of you who are looking to transition online this year or develop your marketing materials, we do have an in-house resident designer. Her name is Mariah Ashley. She's Navajo, and she's on hand every first Tuesday and Thursday of the month for anyone who would like an online appointment to get a logo critique or talk about what does it take to get a website online or to start selling on Etsy or Instagram. Mariah is there for you to help transition online. We also have a beautiful little studio in Tuba City, our co-working space. It's run by Marcia Gray Eyes, and it's available to you if you need a place to access Wi-Fi, to print out Form 100, to print any document really, or if you just need someone or a place to go to ask a question about starting your business, that space is open to you. Marcia is there every Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. We also run the Business Incubator. This is Jess's program. And each year we're selecting a dozen high potential Native American entrepreneurs to participate in this one-year program. If it's something that might interest you, if you're just starting up a new business, or have an idea for a new business, we'd love to hear about it. Come and visit us in Tuba City. And then the last two programs I'll tell you about include our microloan program, Kinship Lending, which is something that we put in place earlier this year as a response to COVID. It was our way of getting a quick infusion of cash out to vendors and artists and small business owners that needed it. And then finally, our Doing Business initiative. This is Change Lab's effort to drive policy change. It's hard being a Navajo entrepreneur on the res. There's a lot of red tape, as most folks call it. And we did some research on this earlier this year and found out that the Navajo Nation is one of the hardest places in the world to conduct business. We have the actual data to show that now. If you're interested in learning more about that research, it's our website, nativestartup.org/doingbusiness. And anyone on our team would be happy to tell you more about what we're going to try and do with this data and this research that we've collected. The last thing that I'll share is that every Monday, our coaching team is available to you if you should have questions about the relief grant application, about starting a new business, about setting up a good accounting system. I mean, any business topic that you can think of is game. All of us are available. Coaching runs from, I think it's actually now 11 to 5 p.m. every single Monday. And you can sign up for coaching appointments on our website. I'll put a link to that in the chat window shortly. Thank you guys for joining. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jessica Stago.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, actually, for I think a lot of you. Jessica Stago nisha, but Anishla, those of Gambashichin, Kia Ani Dashache, those of Gandashanale. I'm the Director of Business Incubation at Change Labs, as Heather mentioned, and I run the Business Incubator. So thank you everybody for coming and spending an hour with us. We do have a lot to get through, so I'll move this along. So this was what we did yesterday. Step 1 was doing the Form 100 and also making sure that you are registered or you're started the registration for the business source list, Navajo Nation business source list. So I think Heather's going to put in the chat the YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch the presentation from yesterday. So today we're going to be going over the actual application, and I'm using 2 screens. So if I'm going back and forth and not looking directly at the camera, that's why. First, you probably are wondering if you're even eligible. Just really quickly, eligibility, you have to be a Navajo-owned company. You have to have a census number. If you're in a partnership, you have to have, the partnership has to be at least 51% owned by the Navajo Nation member with the census. You must be facing financial hardship due to COVID, and that is important, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but exactly what they mean by financial hardship. You must be registered on the Navajo Nation business source list again. You have to be 18 years of age, and the covered period for costs that they're going to be asking you for is from March 1st to December 30th. So you have to be in business at least before January 1st, but we'll go over that as well. And then for the login process, you have to have an email address. So if you don't have an email address, you can get an email address for free from Gmail. That's the most common, I think, right now, which you can also use Yahoo or another email website. But you do have to have an email to set up a login. We're going to be going over both the Artisans application as well as the small business. The Artisan application is for $5,000 or less as a grant to your business. And the small business application is basically above $5,000 up to $60,000, I believe. So for Artisans, you have to be independently owned and operated. Your gross sales cannot be more than $100,000. You'll need to be organized as an artist, and we can go over that a little bit later. You must be able to demonstrate a sustained commitment to work, career, and public audience for your work. So that's basically word for word what it says in the application, but we can talk about what's required there. For the small business, you have to be in operation at least by January 1st of this year, have less than 300 employees as of March 1st. And if you are requesting more than 50,000, you will need a Dun & Bradstreet number. And that we can put that website where you can get a Dun & Bradstreet number for free in the chat as well. And we can go over what that is when we're going over the application. So if you feel like you want to continue, if you meet those requirements, this is where you would go, navajoeconomy.org. This is the new website that the Division of Economic Development put up in order to get businesses certified, provide a copy of the tax form 100 and also the portal for the application. So the portal for the application is here. So if you want to begin the application, you would click on the Navajo CARES Act box under the website. And then this is what it looks like. You'll need to, first thing, create the login. You'll need to create a password. And then once you create the login and the password, they will send an email to your email address. You'll need to go to your email address, click the link, and that verifies your email for this website. And then you can log in. So once you do log in, this is what it'll look like. You type in your name. This is just the first initial setup. Type in your name, type in the role of your business or the role that you have in your business or the position in the business. So you could put things like an artist, owner, founder, director. Then you'll click done once you're done filling that in. And then it'll take you to a couple of legal agreements. So you'll have to, review the legal agreements. You'll click I agree on the bottom. And then once you click I agree, there's another little pop-up that comes up that makes sure, tells you again that this is a legal binding agreement. You click on yes. And then to go to the next one, you click on agree and continue, and that will happen twice. So there's 2 legal agreements that you'll need to agree to. And then it'll bring this page up. This is to add your organization. So you'll put in the legal name of the entity. If you're an artist or sole proprietor, you could just put your name there. And then you'll need to go to, and then here's a list of the categories that you can choose. Down below, there will be a box. It'll be a pop-up, or it'll be a drop-down box where you'll pick the entity. So you need to make sure that you choose either small business or artisan. Those are what you would be eligible for on this in this portal. And it is important because they don't show you any other applications. So if you need more than $5,000, you'll pick small business. If you're an artisan and you're only applying for the 5,000 or less, you'll pick artisan. So on the next page, this list of programs will come up, and based on the eligible entity, you'll be provided with the actual grant information here. So it's important that you pick the right entity there. And then you'll click on the red arrow there under View Program, and the program details will come up. So this is where the program description tells you what this grant is about. And this is important because, so for right now, you'll have to think about your entity, your business is going to receive a grant from the Navajo Nation. So if you think about it that way, then it tells you here what the grant is for. If you are an artisan facing financial hardship or business interruption due to COVID-19. So what that means is you'll have to demonstrate to them that your business has been interrupted in terms of how your revenue has been affected, how the costs have been affected. And there's not a lot of documentation. It's basically just answering a question, but this will help you to understand what expenditures you can request, what costs you can report to them that you want to be reimbursed or that you need these funds to pay for. So if you think about it that way, you're applying for a grant, and what you need the money for, that's what your expenditure request is. If you think about it, it's a grant to your business. I need to pay for these expenses. And the reason I need money to pay for those expenses is because COVID-19 caused some kind of business interruption. So just kind of begin thinking about it that way, and that will help you when you get to doing your expenditures. So the next thing, down at the bottom under program documents, you'll see all of the documents there, and we'll go through all of these, but mostly the overview and eligibility is just sort of the legal paperwork, tells you what the grant is for, tells you what the general eligibility requirements are, what the covered period is. The covered period for these grants, again, is March 1st, 2020 through December 30th of 2020. Tells you a little bit about the application and what their eligible expenditures are, how to fill out, how they want you to report to them, what the expenditure request will be, and then also some information about the taxes, about whether or not this is a taxable income for your business. The next one is the application form. That's an actual application that you can download. However, when you go to apply, it has to be online. So at the end of this portal, you'll see where you begin the application, but you can download the paper form or the PDF just so you can look through it and see what information they're going to ask you for. The final reporting template. So in the overview, it does tell you that you will need to report, do a final report, and that report's going to be due next year, June 30th of 2021. So again, this is a grant to your business. So what they're going to want you to do is do a grant report and let them know what you actually spent that money on. So it'll all be based on your expenditure requests. And that is a Excel file that you'll need to, that you can download here. And then it's basically just filling in what you spent the money, the funds on. And then the next is IRS form W-9. That's something that you'll need to download, fill out, and then you're going to need to upload that. And what the W-9 is, it's IRS form. It tells the IRS that the Navajo Nation gave you, your business, or you as a person, if you're a sole proprietor, these funds, and they'll report to the IRS at the end of the year. So the W-9 sort of tracks you as a taxpayer. It tracks both the entity that gave you the funds, so they can report that they gave you those funds, also helps you track as a taxpayer the income that you received. So when you fill out a W-9, you're telling the person, the entity that you're getting funds from, that this is my taxpayer ID number. Your taxpayer ID number, if you're a sole proprietor, is your social security number. And it's if you're an entity and you have a IRS employer identification number, if you're a business, that's what they'll ask for. That's what you'll report on the W-9. So again, if you're filling out the W-9, and this is for any transaction that you're doing, you're basically telling the IRS that you're receiving income from this entity that you're giving the W-9 to. And they're going to use that W-9 to report to the IRS as well. So let me stop there and see if there's questions.
There are. I'm going to chime in with two in the chat window. The first is, are you able to register in this portal while your business certification application is processing?
Yes. The business registration certification, if you haven't gotten the number yet, you don't need it until you actually submit your application. So you can go through, start this application, get all the information together. The thing you'll probably spend the most time on is the expenditure request. So you can get that done while you're waiting for the business registration number.
Excellent. And then another question from Richard. If we miss the deadline to apply for the CARES grant, will there be additional support for new companies?
Well, I think that's yet to be seen. We won't know until whatever the Navajo Nation Council decides to do, if there's still funds that haven't been expended. So I really can't answer that question. It's all up to the Navajo Nation Council.
Thanks. Any other questions? I think we can safely.
Should we move on?
Yeah, I'll keep monitoring. Oh, one more. Is this taxable to us?
Yes. So the way that I interpret this, which seems like it's not very clear, but yes, you will need to report this income. As I said, you're going to have to provide a W-9. So anytime you provide a W-9, that means that you're going to need to report that income to the IRS. So you'll need to report this grant as income to your business. However, there is ways that you can reduce. Once you report the income, you also may qualify for tax credits or tax deductions. That's the part I don't think they've quite figured out yet. The wording says, however, a grant made by the government of a federally recognized Indian tribe to a member to expand an Indian-owned business or on or near the reservation is excluded from the member's gross income. So that tells me that they'll allow you to exclude that once you do have to report it. But as with any time you do your income taxes, once you report your income, then you start doing your deductions, and then you start doing your tax credits. So it looks like you report it, and then they take it out of your gross income.
Thanks, Jess. I have another question here. Can you still file for this grant if you're receiving unemployment or PACU?
Yes. Yes, the unemployment insurance, as well as if you receive any monies from like TANF or any of those programs, you do not have to report that, and those are excluded from this. And the reason why is because those programs are not COVID related. Okay, should we keep going? I'm nervous about the time. I feel like we're gonna run out of time. Okay, so then the next part is the expenditure request. So these are the eligible categories that you can request funds to pay for. And we'll go through each one of these, but this is, again, I have budget estimation because this is a grant. Again, remember that's a grant. And it just tells you what you can use the grant monies for. So the covered period is March 1st. So from March 1st to now, to October 6th, any funds that you have spent on any of these categories, you can ask to be reimbursed for through this grant. You can also ask for these funds from today through December 30th. So if you anticipate any of these expenditures from now to December 30th, you can also ask for money to pay for that, for the grant to pay for that. So payroll and benefits, let's go through these. Oops, sorry. Payroll and benefits, it's basically if you have employees, you can use this to pay salaries, wages, and benefits for any of your employees. If you're a sole proprietor, you can also use this grant to pay yourself. And we'll go over how to come up with those in a minute. Business loan interest. If you have a business loan or you have a line of credit from your bank that you use for your business, you can use these funds to pay the interest only. You can't use them to pay the entire payment because most payments include part of the principal of the loan and the interest. And you can ask your bank or your credit card company or your creditor what part of your loan payments are interest only, and you can use that part to pay for this. Again, March through December. You can use the grant to pay just the interest. Rent and utilities. This is if you have a physical location and you're paying rent or you're paying mortgage on that building, you can use these funds to pay those costs. You can use these funds to pay utilities for that business site. And for home-based businesses, you cannot use these funds to pay for that part of your home-based business that you usually report to the IRS. We'll go over that in a minute. Technology. This is for if you needed to if you needed to purchase any technology in order to respond to COVID-19. So if you needed to maybe put in a new point of sale system that was reduced touching and had the transactions between people, or if you needed to put in glass or plastic barriers to protect your employees. Well, actually that's PPE. Technology, if you needed to purchase, a computer for your employee that's going to be working from home, that's what you could use this grant for. PPE for COVID-19, those plastic barriers that you put in to protect people from each other. If you needed to purchase, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, personal protective equipment, sanitation, if you needed to pay to deep clean your facilities, all of those are covered as costs under this grant. And again, from March 1st through December 30th. So even if you haven't actually spent money on that yet, and you plan to do that next month, maybe you're going to try to open up, you can use this grant for those funds or for those costs. Marketing, any marketing costs associated with resuming your activity. So let's say you are going to reopen next month and you want to do a marketing campaign, you want to let people know that you're going to be reopening, you can use this grant to pay those costs. And other. So what's important here is this is a non-exhaustive list of eligible expenditures. So if there's something else, some other cost that's specific to your business that you can tie back directly to COVID-19, you can ask for that cost to be included here in this grant. So that's what we put under, what you can put under other. The only things you cannot ask for is, these are ineligible expenditures. One is lobbying. I think that's self-explanatory. Business loan principal payments. So again, if you have a business loan, you cannot use these funds to pay for the principal payments. Earlier, I mentioned that you can use the funds for mortgage. If that mortgage is a business loan, and then you can only use it for the interest part of the mortgage, not for the actual principal payments. Home-based business, the partial mortgage or utility payments. So if you're a home-based business, at the end of the year when you go to file your taxes, you usually get some sort of deduction, business deduction, for a percentage of the costs of using your home for your business. So usually it's a square footage percent, depending on what you decide, for the actual physical location, so square footage, and also percentage of the utilities that you pay out of your home, to do business out of your home. You cannot use those for this grant. You can't use this grant to pay for those costs. But what you can do is, when you are putting together what you pay yourself, that's one of the costs you can put in there, because that's part of your personal, that you pay yourself from your business, and then you pay these costs. So it's not explicitly in there, but you need to consider that when you're looking at how much you pay yourself. And then you can ask for the grant to pay for taxes and fees paid to federal, state, or local governments. So let me stop and see if there's any questions.
Jess, there was a question. I'm going to read it out loud, though, in case not everyone can see the chat window. I also want to make sure I answered it correctly. The question is, for a startup company that is being formed now, I assume by now it means September, October, it appears that the CARES funds are not available. Am I correct?
Yes, not this particular grant. Okay, that's it for now.
That's it.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I've been in business for 2 years, but I'm still building out. And my business is near the Grand Canyon, and it's on the Navajo Nation Parks and Recs, and they closed it indefinitely till January 1st. But I'm still building out. Can I use some of this money to build out?
It depends on what you are building. For example, if you're building, so let's say you're anticipating that they're going to reopen the park on January 1st. And in order to build out and make your location safe for, and you're purchasing, like I said, equipment, or maybe a point of sale system to reduce the spread, the risk of the spread on January 1st when you reopen, and you have to purchase things for that, then yes, you can use that, as long as it fits within any of these, maybe technology or PPE or marketing. But you can't use it if it's like to purchase a building, that they would not consider that part of COVID-19.
I'm not purchasing any buildings. We're actually building it ourselves. We rent out hogans,
Okay.
but we want to upgrade them so they have hand washing, like a sink and things like that. Would that count? And a shower?
Yes, I would definitely say those count, because that's sanitation supplies and equipment.
And the whole septic system of the restrooms. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've had a few more questions roll in. Orlinda asks, is it just an estimate that we use for costs?
You can use an estimate. However, well, for one, this is a one-time shot. So if you underestimate and you run out of funds, you won't be able to go back and say, well, I need to finish this. So that's the risk of estimating. What I would, and then there's two ways to look at it. One, if you go back to the cost from March 1 to today, you can only use what you actually spent. So you can't estimate there. You should be able to tell how much money you've been spending on these things. Where you estimate is from now to December 30th. So whatever estimation that you're making when you do your grant report in June of next year, you have to report what you budgeted and then what your actual costs were. Now, if you underestimate and you spent more than that, you'll be fine. But if you overestimate and you can't provide receipts for how much that you budgeted, if it's more than 10%, then they deem that as being in non-compliance of the grant. And I'm not quite sure what it says. They may ask you to return those funds if you don't spend all of it. And you will need to provide receipts. So that's just a warning. So you can estimate, but I would really put some thought into making sure that you're getting that correct.
Another question is, are they going to require a budget sheet?
Yes, and that's what we'll go over next.
All right. Next question, can you still apply for this grant if you do not do business on the Navajo Nation, but you live there?
Yes.
All right. And Summer is asking, as far as building or upgrading your business, we work from a home garage. Would we be able to use funds to build a new studio in anticipation of hiring employees?
Yes, as long as what your, well, I guess it depends. So if you plan to upgrade that garage in anticipation of employees, and you're putting in place and you're building a workspace that is safe in response to COVID, then you can, but you have to be using that garage only for business, not any personal activities that have, in the garage. It's got to be, it's a separate building specifically for your business. Then you can say that's your business site and that you're making these upgrades in response to COVID. Again, I don't think that they would accept that you're building a new building in response to COVID, unless, there's some reason you can't use that garage.
Okay, another question. Can I list vehicle gas and expenses if I use it for my business?
Yes, that would be where you would put in other. You could put your mileage in there.
Okay, last question here. If a grant is authorized before December 30th this year, does that money have to be spent prior to that date? It says must spend the funds prior to December 30th. Does that apply to the business and artisans or to the Navajo Nation government?
I think that's what's the discussion right now. The overview doesn't say anything about needing to spend the money by December 30th. It would just mean, but technically you're asking for money that you need to spend by December 30th. So you're actually saying, yes, I need this money and all these costs are going to be, my business has to pay by December 30th. So, you holding on to cash after December 30th would basically be saying that you didn't quite need the money and you didn't need it by December 30th, which would make you outside of compliance according to if it's more than 10%. So I would say there's a 10% window there, according to the report, that the final report that needs to be filled out for the grant.
I'll keep monitoring the window. Why
Okay.
don't you keep going?
Okay. So this is an example of those categories. And I did 2 examples, one for small business. And I didn't do one for artisan because I for 5,000 or less, I'm pretty much going to assume that the artisan, since it's from March to December, to make it easy on you in terms of reporting, that you would ask for the 5,000 for payroll and benefits, which would mean to pay yourself. So if that's, that's kind of, you would, if you're an artisan, the only category you would really use is payroll and benefits for $5,000. Because I assume that you gonna make more than 5,000. 5,000 is probably not even enough from March to December. So that's my assumption. Anybody has questions on that, I'd be happy to go over it with you. So this is for a small business. The first one is for somebody, a business that might have 3 employees and rent an office space. On the application, they want the dollar amount, which is on that second column. And then they want their percentage, which is on the third column. And so I put down for payroll and benefits, $90,990, business loan interest of $530, rent utility payments, $3,010, new or expended technology for $420, measures to protect, prevent, and mitigate COVID-19. I put 18,000 because if you rent an office space, I'm thinking, you need to get the office cleaned. You're going to need new construction. You're going to need to put in sanitation, places where people can have access to things like hand sanitizers. You might even need a new furniture. So I just kind of made, assumptions there. Marketing costs for resumption of activities. I put 10,000. A business like this would probably need maybe a new website. Maybe they offer more services on their website instead of having to reduce the number of people that actually have to come into the office. So the important thing here is the total expenditure request, $122,950. That's 100% of the expenditure. And they want to know of these categories, what percentage are you going to spend the grant on? So how do you find out this percentage? Now this is math, but the way that you figure out the percentage is that once you have your total expenditure requests, you divide each line item. So for payroll and benefits, $90,990, and you divide that by 122,950, the total expenditure requests. And then you'll get the percentage. So that's how you figure that out. For the second example, this is just one employee, home-based business. For payroll and benefits, I put in $10,191.66. And then the same thing. So the total expenditure requests, I put in as $19,330. For this example, let's say you're an artisan, you want to ask for more than 5,000, but you do your business out of your home. So you can't really ask for rent or utility payments. You don't have any business loans or credit cards or anything that you use credit for your business. But you do file your taxes as a sole proprietor every year, or you might be an LLC. But you have to, let's say you had to buy a new laptop so that you can begin selling online, or maybe even communicating with your the people that you do business with, and you didn't have that communication. So since you're doing more business virtually, you needed to get a laptop. So I put $730 for a new laptop. This is actually somebody's, this is real numbers for somebody. The COVID-19, you haven't you have bought some supplies, but not really anything, and you don't really know how much supplies you need, that's where I estimated, and I just basically put, okay, I'm going to spend 1% of what the total cost of the grant. And so you're really putting yourself on a budget there. So maybe you really haven't bought up to now this much PPE in response to your business, because you're also your home-based business. So maybe you bought it for your home, but not really for your business. But going forward, as you get used to, as we all get used to, navigating the world with COVID, then you might need to say, okay, I do want to meet with my customers more, or I want to go out and sell more. So I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to buy masks. I'm going to buy gloves. I'm going to make sure that my products are sanitized in plastic bags, or, some other protection so that they stay sanitized. So you want to kind of plan. So this is where you're going to ask for funds for those costs. And then let's say, you decide, what, in order for me to get back into business and stay in business and keep this business running, I probably do need to do something like maybe set certain days where I'm in certain places and I can meet with people, or be able to communicate, show what I have online. I need a website, or I need to do some social media. Then I'm gonna need to pay somebody to help me to do that. So I'm putting in $5,000 to help me with marketing costs for resuming business. Now, you don't want to say that you're pivoting your business directly online, because it specifically says that these marketing costs are to resume your business as is, and not for a long-term marketing strategy. So that tells me they really don't want to be paying for that kind of, but you can be creative here. There's really nowhere where they specifically say that you can't use it for certain things, except for those list of ineligibles. And then the next one is mileage. So 3,204, that's mileage that this person had already had to pay for from March to now to do the business she was able to do. And then looking at last year's, she pulled up her costs from last year's, from these months, October, November, December, and she included it in that cost. So remember, you were getting reimbursed from March, but you're also anticipating costs to December. Any questions?
Yes. So Janelle has pointed out that you are using 2 decimal places in your percentage. Is that what's required?
No, that's just the spreadsheet.
Okay. Another good question here from Chanel. How do you provide receipts for paying yourself?
So that's a really gray area, and I've thought about it. How can an artisan or somebody who's a sole proprietor who only has one bank account normally, who goes out and sells things and then puts the money in the account, and then they buy supplies, they pay for expenses, they pay for food like normal. How at the end of the day do they report that? Because the only place you'll have to report that is on the report that's going to be due in June. So what I'm recommending is, one, if you can get another checking account to put these funds in, that would be the ideal way to do this. And then you can do one transaction when you get the funds to reimburse yourself for anything from May till now, or not May, March till now. Or you can do transactions from October, November, December, paying yourself each month from that account to your personal checking account. That's the best way to do it. But because I know most banks have fees, it's hard to avoid bank fees, and those get in the way. You could also use a savings account from your current checking. So if you have a checking account, you can open another savings account. Most banks let you do that for free, and do the same thing. Put these funds into that savings account and then just do transaction from that savings account into your personal. There's also other messier ways to do it. If you want to just put into your regular checking account, but then you keep track of your business expenses outside of that and your personal expenses. And then every month you can put in you can deduct those expenses from that amount and report it that way. You can do that as well. Let's say you just completely forget, you put in your checking account, you do everything normal and you forget all about it until June 29th and the report's due the next day. Then what you'll need to do is go back, pull up all of your bank statements, highlight where where the deposit was made, and then highlight and take out all of the expenses and then report it that way. But that's the hard way to do it. So that's my my suggestion. And if somebody else has a better way of doing it, you might even want to put it on a prepaid card and do it that way. Any way you can make it easy for yourself to report that transaction from one account that has these funds to your personal checking account. That's how you can report how you pay yourself.
Thanks, Jess. So I also am getting asked, what or would a silversmith's budget report be similar to the small business with one employee?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. Question from Melissa. If I have two businesses, runs two sole proprietorships, can I file for both businesses or only one?
You don't need to distinguish which business. You can put it all under one grant report. So you can file for one grant for both businesses, but you don't need to say, especially if they're both sole proprietors, you know, your payroll would be just one number. So what you see here is all that you report to the Division of Economic Development is these categories, the number and the percentage. They don't ask you for any other details about this. You don't really have to, the only time you're going to need to report the details of what you actually spent the money on is in that June report. And you need to report and where you'll put in documentation, like if you're purchasing PPE, you need to keep your receipts, and that's the receipt that you turn in. If you're purchasing new technology, same thing, reporting the invoices or receipts. So the documentation for the grant is different from the documentation from the application, and we'll go over the application, that documentation next, I believe. All
right. Another question from Reese. When you say that artisans should put payroll for 5,000, can I still include receipts for gas, vehicle payments, etc.? Is that acceptable?
I think you can, yes, because those show your personal expenses. I don't think they want that level of detail, but if that's how you think it's easiest for you to report that you spent that on your personal expenses as payroll, I'm pretty sure that they would accept that as documentation for that.
Okay, this is the last question. Or Linda asks, if I can't purchase a laptop now, can I estimate the cost and purchase it if I get the grant?
Yep. Yes. Okay, so move forward. So this is what it actually looks like on the application. You'll put the total estimated expenses for the covered period, again, March through December 30th. You'll subtract any other federal, state, or programs that you've received funds from. Again, those are only programs that that are here because of COVID-19. And then that's going to be the total amount you requested. And then this is what the percentage looks like on the application. So I just wanted to show you that that's all the detail that they ask for. So This is the documentation that you'll need to apply. This is a documentation you'll need now. Everybody will need to do the IRS Form W-9. For artisan grants that are 5,000 or less, you'll need to remember in the beginning, I said that you'll need to demonstrate that you're an artisan that has a sustained commitment to their work, career, and public audience. Organized as an artist in medium or discipline in art or performance. So what they want is some kind of affiliation to an artist organization. So it could be a vendors association. I know there are several vendors associations across the nation. It could be your documentation for when you go to Native Americans for Community Action in Flagstaff and you participate in the lottery, or any of the other lotteries that they have for space. That documentation will work. If you have invoices or from Navajo Arts and Crafts or Navajo Nation Museum or Herd Museum, gift shop, or any, maybe Sedona galleries, if you have invoices for them, that's the type of documentation that they want. If you have your confirmations from your art shows, so Herd Museum, SWIA, could be ASU Powwow, Denver Powwow, maybe Gallup Ceremonial. So any documentation that you can show that you are actively working as an artist. And then for small businesses above 5,000, you'll need your Navajo Nation business certification number. Or a certification of good standing from Navajo Business Regulatory or the state of Arizona. So for an artisan, you do need to show that you're registered with the Navajo Nation, and you'll need to get your registration number, but that's all you need. If you're a small business asking for more than 5,000, they want to know that you are, if you have some type of maybe, you may or may not. If you're a sole proprietor, then you don't have this. Then all you need is a business certification number. But if you have an LLC or you're organized as a corporation, then you need the certificate of good standing. So it depends on what you're organized as. Same thing with the small business for a request of more than 10,000. This is where you do need to provide documentation of legal business formation. So a certificate of incorporation or articles of organization. However, or some legal documentation that has your address, your business address. However, the regulations do not say that a sole proprietor is not qualified to ask for a grant of more than 10,000. So that's another sort of gray area. And right now it's under review by the review committee. But if you are a sole proprietor and you want to ask for more than 10,000, your best bet is that you've filed your tax returns with a Schedule C. And so your 2019 tax returns should suffice for legal documentation. But that's under review right now. Haven't gotten a complete answer on that yet. But if you are asking for more than 10,000, either way, you do need to file your 2019 tax returns, your business tax returns, however you did that. Your payroll register for, which either you can get that from your accountant. If you have an accountant, you could also get that from your bank if you have a bank account that you use specifically for payroll. But it needs to show your employees and what you pay them from March 1st to December 30th if you still have employees on the payroll. And then if applicable, you do need to provide the documentation if you've received the payroll protection program funds, the EIDL. I can't even think of what EIDL stands for. Or any other CARES Act funding from the federal government or the Navajo Nation. Again, has to be specifically available due to COVID. So unemployment and any other TANF programs or anything like that, you don't need to report that. So are there any questions on that?
Yes, there are. Marissa asks, what if I don't necessarily have any proof of entering in any art shows, but I do have sales invoices from customers?
That will work. You can, submit your sales invoices.
Diane asks, I'm an LLC and was going to apply as an artisan. Do I need the certification also?
You do, yes.
Okay.
You can go to the navajoeconomy.org and start your business certification today, and then start working on the application until you can get your business certification number to you.
Excellent. And Agnes asks, I understand that you can submit pictures and statements from customers. Is that true?
I would think if your customers purchased those, if your customers themselves are giving you photos of what they purchased from you, but if they're pictures that you took of your product, I don't think that would suffice. Just because there's no way to know that you're the actual artist, that you could take pictures of any artwork, and there's no way for them to verify that that's your artwork. But if you have a statement from a customer that says, I purchased this on this date, if you have some way of transaction of that, maybe it's through Square or online, or you have social media documentation of that somehow, maybe PayPal, you can submit that kind of paperwork. This is a picture of the final report. So again, this is the categories that are eligible. Column A is what you're going to turn into them today, the approved budget, or turn in with your application. And then your actual expenditures. These actual expenditures you'll need to provide receipts for, and then, or documentation. And then the variance, as I was saying, if it's more than 10%, which is calculated in column D, then they want an explanation. So if you underestimate your expenses and your actual expenditures are more than that, and the variance is 0, you won't need to provide any explanation for that. But if you severely underestimate, like let's say you asked for $5,000 for new and expanded technology, and you only spent $1,000, the variance is 75%. They're going to want to know why you only spent, why you underspent that amount. And they may ask for those funds back if you can't show a receipt for that. So if you ask for it, make sure you spend the money on those categories. Okay, so the application is 12 questions for both applications, but they're different questions. So we're going to switch over to the actual PDF that you download, so you can take a look at it, and then we'll just go through these quickly. Okay, so this is, I'm going to do the Artisan Relief Grant really quickly. The first part is basically just your name, address, city, phone number. Here's where you put in your census number, so make sure you have your census number. Eligibility questions, and they're exactly like this. First one, yes or no answer. Have you registered? If you say yes, then you'll need to provide the registration number. And then, are you participating or active artist or artisan in a medium or discipline in art? Again, just a yes or no question. Just verifying that you are an artist. Providing the name of any art organization you're affiliated with. So this is where you would put in Cameron Vendors Association, or Native Americans for Community Action lottery recipient, or something like that there. Again, number 5, are you 18 years of older? Yes or no question. Are you facing financial hardship due to COVID-19 pandemic? And everybody needs to say yes on this if you're applying. And then this explanation here needs to be about how your business was affected. So most of you are going to say something like your sales were affected, but you need to say something like, due to COVID-19, my customer shut down their business and they purchased product from me. Or due to COVID-19, tourists were not allowed on the reservation, and so I did not have any customers coming to my place of business. Something like that. Specifically, something specific. It's just, it can be one statement, one sentence statement. 7, your annual gross sales less than 100,000. Are you or your art business independently owned and operated? So, you again, yes or no question. Number 9 is 9, 10, and 11 have to do with the federal funds due to COVID. So if you did, it's a yes or no question. If you got economic injury disaster loan from the SBA, then you would say yes, you'll need to provide documentation. If you got a paycheck protection program loan, you'll say yes, you'll need to provide the documentation for that. Have you previously received any other financial assistance due to COVID? I don't know what else is out there now, so I can't imagine anybody would say yes, but if you did, you would say yes, and then describe exactly what it is, and you'll need to provide documentation. So the amounts that you received prior to this grant, again, you'll need to subtract that from your total expenditures, and then that'll be the amount that you can ask for. So this next question, number 12, it's weird. It's kind of it's a question that's on every federal loan program, every federal grant program. To your knowledge, are you presently suspended, debarred, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, voluntarily excluded from participation in this program by any federal department or agency, or presently involved in any bankruptcy? Okay, so if you're involved in bankruptcy right now, you'll need to say yes or no. The rest of it has to do with if you are in any sort of suspension with the federal grant, and this is you personally, so not a company or an organization that you work for, you personally. If you have been debarred, you get debarred from federal programs if you lie on a grant application, or if you lie to the federal government about anytime you're receiving a grant or a loan, you're found to be dishonest, you can be debarred. Or you can be suspended from programs or declared ineligible. So if you've ever been had any of that happen to you personally, then you would say yes. If not, then it's no. So that's what that's about. And number 12 is on every application. And then, like I said, this is what it looks like. Expenditure requests, the percentages, required reporting, the checklist of documentation. All of this is in the presentation that we've been through before. So I'm going to switch over to the business application. And same thing, starts with your name, business name, address, phone number, your census number. If you're requesting greater than $50,000 for the grant, you'll need to get a DUNS number. And Dun & Bradstreet is basically the easiest way to describe what Dun & Bradstreet is. And they're the company that issue DUNS numbers. It's identification for your business. It's usually used by the federal government, again, in grant programs or contracting, but it sort of acts as like a credit report or a credit report agency for businesses. So similar to like Equifax for personal credit. Dun & Bradstreet provides that same service for businesses, and that's what the DUNS number is used for. It's free to get, and you just go to the Dun & Bradstreet website and you can apply for it, and it's pretty quick. They'll usually give it to you right then and there once you do the application. And we're going to put that website in the chat for you. Eligibility questions, again, yes or no answers. First one is about whether or not you have your business certification number. If you say yes, you need to provide that in question, the number in question 2, or attach a certificate of good standing. If you were already registered, so you probably don't have a registration number. So if you're registered prior to this grant period, you probably don't have a registration number, but you should have a certificate of good standing from the Navajo Nation. You can upload that into the grant portal here. Your 2019 annual revenue has to be less than $3 million. Has your business been financially affected by COVID-19? Again, the same thing. Everybody's going to need to say yes here, and a 1 or 2 sentence statement about how exactly your business was affected by COVID-19. And then number 5 is about whether or not you are you meet this criteria: organized for profit, operating prior to January 1, and independently owned and operated. Question 6 is the total number of employees you've had as of March 1. If you're a sole proprietor or you're a sole member LLC, you just put 1 there. But otherwise, you need to include all of the employees, whether you're part-time or full-time, including the owners for this calculation. So questions 7 and 8 is asking you, what were your business revenues for last year from March 1st to August 31st? And then question 8 are, what are your business revenues for the same period, March 1st through August 31st of this year? Now, I'm not quite sure why they ask that. I believe it's just for data reasons, because there's nowhere in the overview that says you have to have a demonstrated loss of revenue. So I'm not quite sure why they ask that. Again, I think it's just because they're trying to collect this data, because it doesn't say that, oh, well, that you have to demonstrate that you've had, what if your revenues were higher? Nowhere does it say that if you have higher revenues, you don't qualify for the grant. But again, a gray area. They're asking the question. I would just answer it as best that you can, and it doesn't say that it makes you ineligible, which I can't imagine businesses who have a higher revenue wanting to apply for the grant anyway. So if you have questions or want to talk about that, I can do that another time. Question 9, 10, and 11, again, is about those federal programs. Question 9, whether you've got an EIDL loan. Question 10, the Paycheck Protection Program loan. And 11 is any other federal funds through the CARES Act. And then again, question 12 is the same that I explained before about whether or not your business has been debarred, declared ineligible, or you're involved in a bankruptcy. And the rest of the application is the same as we went over before. So I'm going to go back to, well, I'll stop for questions.
Okay, we've got a few questions here. Going back to the question about being able to submit pictures and statements, Cynthia asked, are Facebook pictures okay?
I believe Facebook pictures would be okay. I think they would accept that. I can't say for sure, but I know that what they're looking for, from what I can tell, is they're looking to just verify that you're the artist, that you are actively in business in some way. And as long as you can demonstrate that at a certain point in time, you were selling your artwork.
Okay. Orlinda asks, the application is online, correct? How do we submit supporting docs like proof of estimates?
So the application does have, on the portal, there's a place where you will upload your documents. So uploading your documents would mean that you either have a PDF version of it or a JPEG picture version of it. So if you don't have a scanner, you can take a photo with your phone and convert it to a PDF, and you should be able to upload it from there.
Great. Question from Rudy. I've been in business since April this year. Can I still apply?
No, you have to be in business before the covered period, which is March 1st.
Right. Okay. Reese asks, just to clarify, if you're getting pandemic unemployment assistance, can I apply for an artisan grant?
Yes. The pandemic unemployment assistance is a state program. Even though it does come from the federal government, they consider that a state program. So the requirement is you can't be getting CARES Act from the federal government.
Perfect. Will check stubs work as invoices?
Yes. Do you mean sales check stub? So if your customer writes you a check and there's a check stub attached to that, is that what, I think that's what I would, it depends if she's talking about, as long as you're not talking about a payroll check stub. If you're talking about a check stub that came attached to, I know some businesses do that. They have a check stub and then the check, if they're paying a vendor, yes, that would count.
Okay. Chanel asks, what do we put if we haven't participated in art shows, but we do have customers placing orders?
It depends on, even if you have your own like order book, where you're writing people's orders in like that, where you can just buy from Staples or something. As long as you have a record that you can show that way of the orders that have been placed, or if they're placed by online, like through email or text message, some way to document that you had those orders, but also that you filled those orders. So there's two parts to that. You have to show not only that you got orders, but that you actually filled those orders. And you're gonna have to be a little creative if you haven't kept the best records. So like, let's say you can document an order on an email and it costs a certain amount, and your transaction, you tell your customer, okay, it's gonna be $100. And then you can also, and then they pay you through Venmo, or they pay you through your bank account, or they pay you some digital way. You can you documented the sale. That would work too. But let's say you didn't document the sale. Let's say, they may have gave you $100 cash. You're going to need to find, maybe a deposit slip that shows, or deposit on your bank account, your bank records that shows that $100 was put into your bank account. And, that you had the order, this is how much it costs, and this is how you got paid. So if you don't keep the best records, then you have to do more work in documenting these sales.
Yeah. Daryl has
there's a lot of ways to do it. You can, I think if you can sit and think through how can you document that, you probably will find a way to do it in most cases. But you can also sign up for, if you want help to kind of think through these things, we can help do that with you through the business coaching.
And Daryl has a good suggestion in here that investing in a little receipt book will help. So another question from Agnes. If I don't have access to internet, where can I get help filling out the application, the online application?
It's
Change
an
that.
online application. There's no way around that. So you would either need to go to, if you're in the Tuba City area, you can go into the studio. We have internet access there. I think most chapters have internet access. Also, the Division of Economic Development is doing some assistance with this application. And so you might contact the RBDO, the Regional Business Development Office, if you're, maybe if you're far from Tuba City, and see if they have a way to help you complete the application online.
Okay, Agnes asks, do we know of any resources for elders who don't speak English, who haven't been keeping records? Is there a place that they can go where they can get translation services and also help with this application?
Right now, I don't think there's any, but I'm working with a community member out of Hard Rock and a couple of organizations. So I will, we'll put that on our website if we can get something set up. We're shooting for next week sometime to do something like that. See if we can go out and help. But we're still, it's just in the process right now. We're hoping to be able to do that because there are a lot of people who could use these funds and they probably, can qualify for them if there was just that type of assistance. So we're working on that. Okay, so this is just a copy of the W-9 that you'll need to download from the IRS website. We're going to put that link in the chat. And again, this is to report the income and you'll submit this to the tribe. The tribe will report to the IRS that they paid you this income, and then you'll report on your income taxes at the end of the year that you received the income. But again, there's also a credit or a deduction involved with that. So you don't actually, you anticipate that you will not actually pay taxes on this income. But it's basically your name. It's all the blue boxes that will need to be filled out. Your name, your business, if it's different from your name, how you're organized. So if you're a sole proprietor, you would check individual, sole proprietor, or single member LLC. Or if you're a corporation, S corporation or C corporation, or a partnership or a trust, or your limited liability company that's nonprofit or some other organization, your address, the requester's name. So you'll put Navajo Nation there and the address. And then your social security number. Part 1 is your taxpayer identification number. So if you're a sole proprietor, you'll use the social security number. If you have an EIN, you'll fill in the EIN number and then sign the bottom. So this is only page 1 of this document, but the rest of the pages are just telling you how to fill in each of the boxes or instructions. So I only included page 1, but this was just to let you see what it looks like. And that's it. We're done. Any other questions?
Yes. Cynthia says, my uncle is going to apply for an artisan grant for $5,000 to cover payroll, but he doesn't keep good records. How does he get documents for the next 2 years? How does he get the documents for next year's June 2021 report?
So he can, as I said, the easiest way to do this is to apply for the 5,000. When you get the 5,000, deposit it into one account. Could be a savings account that's already attached to a checking account, where all you have to do is do the transfer from your savings to your checking. That's the easiest way to do this, and it won't cost you any money, any additional money. Or if you don't want to do that, you don't want to, you need to just try not to mix these funds in, because it'll make the reporting a lot easier. So if you open a separate checking account and you do the same thing. So you open a separate checking account, you put the 5,000 in there, and you make transfers from that account to a personal checking account with your name on it, the name of the person who applied for the grant, then that's important, because I know families use each other's checking accounts. It has to be the account that the money goes into has to be the person whose name is on this grant. So let's say they don't even have a bank account that they use. You'll need to at least open a bank account that specifically for this reason. Or $5,000 can go pretty quickly. Let's say from October to December, you can spend the entire 5,000, and let's say $3,000 of it will go to rent, and $2,000 of it will go to vehicle payments and insurance. Then you only have, there's still a lot of documents that you'll have to submit or transactions. So you'll have three transactions for the rent and maybe 2 per month for the vehicle. So for the loan and the insurance. So you'll need to submit the receipts that you paid these things with this money. And that will be for payroll for the artisans. So there's different ways to do that, but the easiest way is just to show. Also, if you don't want the Navajo Nation knowing what you spend your money on personally, you don't need to. As long as you can show, okay, I got the grant for $5,000. This is the account that it was in. I made transactions every month of $2,000 until the money ran out from that account into my personal checking, and here's the transaction, here's the proof of that transaction. That's all they're going to need. They don't need to know what you spent the money on if it's for payroll, because payroll is your personal money. So I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Jess. Melissa says, I have business tax forms from 2017 to present. What other documents or certifications do I need to file for the small business grant?
If you're organized as an LLC, you'll need your business formation documents, depending on whether you registered with the Navajo Nation or the state. If you're registered as a sole proprietor, then it is that situation where they are saying that you will need to submit your 2019 business tax returns. And on those tax returns, you'll have to, you should have, or hopefully you'll need to show that you have a business income, which is usually reported on Schedule C. So if you look at your tax returns, might be your personal tax returns, and you have a Schedule C in there, then that means you did, report business income. Sometimes personal tax returns, you can report business income without a Schedule C, or they don't put it on a Schedule C, depending on your tax situation and how your accountant set up your taxes. It could be just another form of income. This is like small business income, or what's the other hobby? You list it as a hobby and you got income from it. It just depends. It depends on the amounts that you need to report. Then you would submit the 2019 tax returns as proof of your business formation if you're a sole proprietor.
Okay. All right. Ooh, there's a few more questions. I heard on Facebook that artisan applications will be accepted in Cameron, Arizona. Is that true?
I have not heard anything about that, so I don't know.
Okay. Reese wants to know, what's the difference between the artisan and small business grant?
The artisan is 5,000 or less, and the small business grant is above 5,000.
Orlinda asks, can artisan pay themselves in one lump sum since it's covered 2020's loss of income?
They can, but in the report, in the June report, the wording says that expenditure, let's see, input the actual expenses you incurred based on the relevant category over the covered period. So if you pay yourself the whole 5,000, you'll need to show documentation that you of that cost from March 1 to October. Or you'll need to show that, let's say your business makes enough money that you pay yourself 5,000 every month. So in that case, one lump sum of 5,000 takes care of 1 month, and that makes sense as long as you can show that in the past, that's what you normally make. That's what you normally, so from March 1 to September, you know, of last year from 20, again, this depends on how much you ask for, because if you're asking for the small business grant, they want to know what your revenue was for those months from last year. So if you're saying, well, I pay myself $5,000 every month, then it makes sense for you to do one lump sum. But you should show on your revenue that you make $10,000 a month normally, or more, at least more than $5,000 a month, depending on what your business is. So you just kind of need to think through the numbers and make sure that it makes sense. But I would suggest not doing that if you can, unless, you know, if it's only 5,000, let's say for the artisan grant, then to me, that totally makes sense, because you're paying yourself from March to now. And, you know, any artisan who makes their, you know, makes a living off their, off of being an artisan would probably pay themselves that amount over, you know, 5 months. So it makes sense to me, and I think it would make sense to them. A lot of this is just, you know, does this make sense? But if you're asking for, you know, $25,000 and you get the money and then you pay yourself $20,000, then that's a little bit more questionable, because you're going to need to go back to your revenues and say that you normally pay yourself that amount of money over the period of March to now.
Okay. Any idea how long it will take to get a response on their business certification application?
I've heard everything from 2 days to a week. I haven't heard anything more than a week, though.
Great. Do artisan grants also need to get a Navajo Nation business certification number?
Yes.
Yes. Can artisans who work under the table and don't file their taxes still apply for an artisan grant?
Yes. Technically, artisans don't work under the table. You're a sole proprietor, and so it's not it's not considered working under the table. So yes, you can apply. You just need to, again, provide for artisans, if it's 5,000, you'll need to provide just some side sort of, for the application itself, you'll need to provide some kind of documentation that you're actually working as an artist. And then for the reporting side, you'll, if you follow, you know, what we've been talking about having a separate bank account that you pay yourself out of, or as long as you can, and you know what, this is being cautious as well. If you're an artist and you pay yourself the 5,000 out of payroll and you do it in one lump sum, as you know, and there's a transaction of that, I think that's really all you really need.
If there's any last questions, otherwise we'll say thank you to everybody for joining us. And again, Change Labs is open in Tuba City from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. You're welcome to stop in and ask more questions. Here's Jessica's email address if you also just want to email her directly. We also have those coaching appointments, and we will have this recorded clinic up on our YouTube channel. I'm posting it one last time in the chat window for you to check out. It should be up there in the next 24 hours. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. Go get that money.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Yeah.